we're going to bring up Mr. Geoffrey Cann. He's a speaker, a trainer, an author, and he's going to talk about bits, bytes, and barrels, the digital transformation of oil and gas. So Geoffrey Cann is an author, an educator, a podcaster, and he's an inspiring professional speaker. His passion is the oil and gas industry, essential to our modern industrial society, and it's imperative to exploit digital innovations as we slowly transition to new fuels. He has worked around the world, including Canada, the US, Korea, Japan, Hong Kong, China, Australia, and the Caribbean over a 35-year career. He teaches a seminar on digital oil and gas, produces a weekly article and podcast on digital issues and energy, and has published his first book, Bits, Bytes, and Barrels, the Digital Transformation of Oil and Gas. And in his free time, he speaks at conferences such as this. So I'm going to go ahead and bring Geoffrey up on the stage here. Hello, Geoffrey. Thank you so much for being here. Oh, and there's the book. Awesome. Geoffrey, we can't hear you. I saw your. Is that better? Yes, much better. I'm going to welcome again. I'm going to hop off the virtual stage and let you take this away.
Thank you so much. Well, first of all, thank you, Katie and DATAcated for the opportunity to come and present to you today. So my role in life is to yell words of encouragement to the oil and gas industry about how digital tools will help them survive. It's a bit like how soccer moms yell at their kids from the sidelines. Yeah, it probably doesn't help, but it does make me feel better. Now, you may have also noticed the enthusiastic support I received this year from my new celebrity sidekick and micro-terrorist, COVID-19. The virus has made my job much easier because the old Covemeister has pointed out all the flaws in an industry business model that's built on paper, is inherently manual and labor intense, and for safety reasons, insists that people work together in pairs very closely, a lot. My efforts also received an unexpected boost this year from some cyber criminals who attacked and shut down Colonial Pipeline. You know, I think ransomware is just Russia's way of teaching Americans about where their energy comes from. And you might be asking, where am I coming from? Well, this is where I live. Yes, this is British Columbia's beautiful wild west coast, and this is indeed the view from my front door. Those are indeed vintage 1950s de Havilland Beaver and Otter aircraft. You know, I never understood why de Havilland chose to name its planes after mammals that spend a goodly amount of time actually underwater. That's not where you find planes. I think the military does a much better job of naming things. They call their very friendly flying drones things like Reaper and Predator and Hawk and Blackbird. This is so much more reassuring. But you know, these old planes illustrate a hidden truth about fossil fuel engines and indeed the whole oil and gas industry. This industry is built to last. And my big idea for you today is this. Oil and gas runs on data. And that's because petroleum is toxic, it's flammable, it's explosive, it's corrosive, it's poisonous, and it's asphyxiating. Actually, you know, that sounds a bit like the kind of relationship you'd have with a really bad roommate than with the most precious commodity that actually rules the world. And that's because of petroleum's more dangerous features. That's why the industry runs entirely on data that it has about the stuff. It might not surprise you to learn that our energy industries are sitting on enormous quantities of data. Suncor, who are one of the largest producers of oil and gas in North America, once estimated that they use only 0.5% of all the data that they've collected. This is a bit like my shoes in the pandemic lockdown. I have a lot of them, but I only really wear slippers now. It might surprise you to learn that oil and gas practically invented big data. The upstream industry has been selling its subsurface data for years. But for the most part, the industry just stops there. Data is viewed as something that's scarce. It's to be hoarded, or maybe you put it on a shelf, or maybe you just ignore it. And now the industry is in desperate need of smart people who really understand data and how to put data to work. Quite frankly, it's just not fair that the industry that lights the night, that fuels all of our cars, that allows us to go on travel vacations, is actually losing out to the likes of Mark Zuckerberg. There are fortunes to be made here if you can just figure this out. What I want to do today is walk you through just a handful of some examples. How many of you give much thought to grains of sand? Oil and gas cares a lot about sand, or more generally, rock. A company called Enersoft uses inexpensive $300 camera sensors to take high-definition photos of drilling cuttings. As a drill bit is grinding its way through rock building a new well, it's sending these bits of rock and stone back up to the surface. These are called cuttings, these little bits, and they're used by geologists to try and figure out what's actually down there. Mining companies pore over these drilling cuttings like a new bride inspecting a diamond. Enersoft takes these photos, feeds them into a machine algorithm, and pieces them together in the cloud. And then it searches for value at the grain of sand level in the cloud in real time while you're drilling. The old-fashioned way was to send these cuttings off to the lab and wait 6 weeks. And of course, the cost of all that lab kit is in the multi-thousands of dollars. Enersoft generates 2 terabytes of data per well. In comparison, you could purchase and store the entire library of all available data about over 500,000 wells in Western Canada in just a few gigabytes. They're generating 1 million times more data per well. Or how about a company called Rogue 7? Rogue 7 believes that human operators of pipelines today can't possibly optimize pipelines fast enough given how much data pipelines generate. Instead, you feed a machine learning algorithm the actual operating data from your pipeline over some period of time, and the algorithm can then predict the pipeline performance 4 hours ahead of time. Now you might ask, what are these 4 hours worth? Well, they're immensely valuable. Operators can fiddle with the dials to improve performance. They can remove a bottleneck. They can reduce the emissions, or maybe they can extract a little bit more capacity. Or, if time permits, play a quick game of Super Mario. This can mean a lot when you can't easily build a new pipeline. What are the kinds of data involved here for pipeline companies? Well, it's product orders. It's the volumes being ordered. It's the product composition, the throughput rates, the price of energy, even the weather conditions, in addition to outages and pressures and the like. Historically, pipeline data was never collected with this purpose in mind. And for my third example, consider Imperial Oil. Imperial Oil has an oil sands plant in northern Alberta. It's so big that it has 50,000 maintenance projects to schedule and deliver every week. This is nigh impossible, even for a well-functioning team that knows what it's doing. But you know what? It's child's play for a computer if you have the right data. Now, what's common to all of these examples is that they're based on data. The oil and gas industry runs on data, and it's in desperate need of people who understand that data and how to put that data to work in algorithms and analysis. And the industry has some of the crunchiest problems to work on because of its complexity, the sheer scale of it, and this enormous backlog of data that has not yet even been touched. And now the industry must face its greatest challenge. How do we keep all these trains, planes, and automobiles running while we transition to these new energies? All of this is going to require data to pull it off. So at DATAcated, at this conference, you're hearing a lot from a whole bunch of different industries and all their clever ideas and their clever technologies. But me, I just want to keep my lights on and I want to keep my car running. Not to mention, I want to take a flight on a vacation on a plane a lot larger than a Havilland Beaver and wearing more than just my slippers. Thanks so much for your attention today.
Geoffrey, that was amazing. The chat is exploding with commenting applause of your creativity here, and people are loving the laugh track. That was awesome. Thank you so much for a very creative and innovative presentation. We do have time to take a couple of questions.
Bring them on.
Awesome. So I'll start with a question here from Svetlana, and her question is, what are the biggest hurdles in digitalization of oil and gas industry?
The biggest issues, culture and mindset, right? It's not technology. Technology is the easy part. It's we have an industry that for 100 years has been trained and has put into place infrastructure to behave in a certain way. And now we want it to behave in a completely different way. And it's the people that have been trained up through the university systems to build this infrastructure and run it in a certain fashion have to change their mindset. That is the single biggest challenge. It's not technology. So
it's not technology. Interesting. No. Yes. Got a comment here from Keith. So he's saying massive amounts, but we struggle to use it effectively. Yep. I'm not sure what exactly he was referring to here. I'm assuming, is it the massive amounts of data, or?
It's probably the massive amount of data. It's they take a pump as an example. In an oil refinery, we'll have thousands of pumps. These pumps are all every 10 milliseconds. They're taking a little measurement. How fast am I running? What's my operating temperature? How much pressure am I under? What's my vibration? Every 10 milliseconds, they take a measurement. And this data flows in through a controller. And that data pops up on the screen, and the operators stare at it to make sure that it's within the the acceptable operating range. But where does that data go? And how do you? It's the volumes are beyond our comprehension as to how much data we're actually talking about here. It's extraordinary how much data, and yet it's not used. That's the prize that's sitting out there.
Yeah, I think there was a statistic out there that a very, very large percentage of data that is collected is actually not used. And it was a crazy percentage. I'm not going to try to remember the exact number, but it was, I believe, way over 80% of data that's collected is actually not used. So that was interesting.
Yeah. That's certainly the factor at Suncor. I mean, they actually, because if you're in a company, you know how much storage you've got because you're getting a bill for it if it's in the cloud or it's on your premises software or hardware. So you can actually calculate how much of it you're actually using versus you're storing. That's a huge amount.
Yeah. And we'll take one more question here. Keith is asking, have you seen anyone effectively take advantage of data in oil and gas?
There's lots and lots of examples. The 3 examples I shared, for instance, would be good examples of those. But yes, there's lots and lots of examples of companies that have taken advantage of their data and done something creative with it. As an example, there was a company in Calgary called NAL Resources. They've been purchased, so no longer existing. What they did was they took all of the paper contracts that they had accumulated over the years, all the business dealings they had with people. They fed them through a machine learning algorithm that read the contracts and then plucked out of the contracts the actual legal terms that were the drivers of the calculation of a payment. Mm-hmm. How much am I going to be owed? What's the percentage rate? When is it going to be paid? What currency is it going to be paid in? And then fed that data into a robotic process tool that auto-generated the Excel spreadsheet to do the calculation. And then they auto-paid the bill. And this eliminated all of this back office nonsense that they were going through month after month after month, paying people to read the same contracts over and over again, trying to find the right clauses. Wow. I mean, it's simple, but the speed improvement was 95%.
Yeah, that's really impressive. Geoffrey, it sounds like that is all the time that we have, but there are questions in the comments around how you were able to keep a straight face during the presentation with all the laugh tracks behind.
That's a good question. I don't. I can share my secrets if you're interested.
Yes, so Geoffrey showed me a couple of interesting secrets in our prep call, so that was really fun. But Geoffrey, thank you so much for your wonderful, innovative presentation here today. Lots of insights, and we will see each other online.
You bet. And here's for the DATAcated.
I'll have to pick that up for myself. Thank you so much.
Bye for now.